what it comes down to is that you earn the right to do nothing.
Right. We're going to take care of everything for you. Right.
And you just sit there.
Nothing.
You just sit there like a dummy and eat your ice cream and watch your thing.
Right. That's right. You only do things that will benefit you.
Right. Right.
Like if you don't get a bit, I read that in a speech that Abraham Lincoln gave. It's actually in the Lincoln Douglas debates, where he was talking about the perils of democracy. That people would only do things that is the end of this paragraph. He says he used the word self-interest. That people would get to a point where they only serve their self-interest. So that's actually where that concept came from.
Well, it's interesting. I realize that now. You know, that the idea of tolerance and the idea of empathy are choices.
Right.
I mean, you can be naturally empathetic, but that doesn't mean you have to honor it. And, you know, and tolerance, without tolerance, democracy doesn't work.
Well, without an overview and an embrace, you know, like when I went to school, I remember I would always, if you called me a name, I was going to fight you. So I got into a lot of scrapes, but this is not a movie. So one person is not really going to beat five, or you're going to. So at one point, after 2 or 3 years of that, one of the people in my class, one of the big guy in our class, is a German guy named John. He said, "Man, you going to fight everybody?" I said, "If they use the N-word on me, yeah." And there's the South in the 60s. People are used to it, early 70s. He said, next time they jump on you, I'm jumping in too. And the next time he did jump in. So it was just something you couldn't predict that
would happen. Was he on your side or the other side?
Yeah, he was on my side. He jumped in with me, man. If I had to hand him and them, that'd have been. But hey, I had accepted. I had accepted it. Wasn't after you accept, you got to do something. You do it.
You're gonna, well, that's something that.
But you know,
Mr. Game repeats a lot. What was it when you do something? What is it?
What you do is what you will do, and that you do makes it true.
Yeah. What is that? That you?
What you do, yeah. What you do is what you will do. Like when you do something, you're gonna do it, and that you do it makes it true. That's from a friend of mine that's a police officer in Chicago. He's retired now. I was the best man at his wedding. He told me he hated to go on domestic violence calls. He said he would go in their home and it'd be like a brother killed another brother, or a husband and a wife, or a wife and he said, and almost every time he would walk into that home, he would tell them, they would be almost in shock. He would say, "Man, you committed a crime. You know, you killed them." He said he'd have to bring them back to earth. He said, and they would always say, but it was just like they didn't understand. Like that, sometimes the rage would overwhelm them. There must have been years of anger builds up. And I was always struck by how because he would reenact it. He had seen it, of course, tens, if not hundreds of times. And he said that he would have to bring them into the reality of the moment. So that's why I had Mr. Game say, that you do makes it true. Like, you know, when you act on something, it becomes real, even if it's not real. Even if Adolf Hitler said Jewish people had tails, or they did this or they did that, none of that is true. But you killing them and putting them in concentration camps, that's true. You putting people on ships and boats, selling them, sleeping with women who you owned, all the things you did. Maybe none of why you did it was true, but that you did it is true. So that's what Mr. Game is trying to tell you. He's trying to bond you, you to him.
Right. And I thought that the section on the record that I really got, like, there's a couple pieces that really stood out to me. The stuff you wrote in the libretto about, you know, causing division within the domestic situation, the death of romance, the death of intimacy, you know, in the name of it wasn't property, transaction. Yeah, I thought that was great, but what I really liked was, like, I can see the whole history of how you play music on these records, right? You know, I can see all of it. I don't know if I can identify the classical so much, but what was interesting to me was that with the yes no, when you get to yes no, that was the only time it was specifically like fucking bebop, right? Like, you know, you're doing that thing, that back and forth, like that argument with doing those blasting those kind of hard bop riffs and shit. And I was like, no, there's that. That was the only time on the record.
Well, you know, the music is a counterbalance to the words. And with the orchestra, we play so much music. That's actually a lot of improvising. Ted Nash is playing the alto, and Chris Crenshaw is playing the trombone. So I got them. We in the background playing these kind of violent hits and this chord progression. And him and Chris, they going for their thing. And they both have a kind of very, very kind of free way of playing, a way of hearing music. So they were perfect for that argument. All I had to do was say fight, man.
Yeah.
They got into their
right.
thing.
But it just felt structurally that was one of the looser parts. Is that possible?
Yeah, in terms of the music, yeah. That was definitely.
Yeah.
No question.
Well, I mean, but I guess what I'm trying to figure out about you is the decision, because you started as a classical musician, right?
No, I started playing jazz and funk. I mean, my dad is a jazz musician,
right?
And I'm from New Orleans, so I started playing just tunes, like jazz tunes, and the first band I played in was Fairview Baptist Church Marching Band when I was 8. We played stuff like Just a Closer Walk with Thee,
right?
Just a Little While to Stay Here, New Orleans tunes. Then the second real gig I played was of all kind of pop music at an elementary school dance when I was 11. Uh-huh. And that was stuff that was on the radio, Stevie Wonder.
Sure.
And then, I was always trying to play modern jazz. Then I met a guy who turned me on to a classical record. And I won a concerto competition to play the Haydn trumpet concerto. Then I was 14. But during that time, I was playing funk gigs. I joined a funk band when I was just turned 13. And I was always trying to play with my father. I mean, we just couldn't play good enough. We always sitting in with it, but we jazz, it was too hard for us to play. But my brother Branford and I, we still would get out there and try.
To play with your jazz band?
Oh, man, we always trying to play with him, but we couldn't. The changes and stuff were behind us.
What kind of stuff was he playing, your dad?
He wrote a lot of music. James Black, great drummer from New Orleans. A lot of their music is in the Ever Fonky Lowdown.
Oh, yeah?
They had their own original tunes, and they played any tune in the jazz, like stuff that I remember the first song he ever wrote out for me was Someday My Prince Will Come. He wrote out Miles' solo. He said, man, check this solo out. And, man, just the changes. If you don't know how to play on chords, man, that stuff. Valse Hot, Sonny Rollins.
Yeah.
Charlie Parker's material like Confirmation, John Coltrane, Giant Steps, Countdown, real difficult song to play. All the stuff in the jazz canon. My father and them were always playing it to a very limited audience. I mean, I would go to his gigs all the time. There was never a lot of people at them. But he and Alvin Batiste,
that make you sad?
No, because I grew up seeing that. I knew people didn't like that style of music. So it was. I thought, man, they believe in this music, and they didn't complain about it that much. I mean, my father, he believed in the music. And then when I got older, I would ask him, man, you ever think about playing something people want to hear? He said, man, then I'll be sounding like y'all. So he was never bitter about it, And I would tease him a lot. Like when he played the piano once in the Hyatt Regency. And people would just talk over him. So maybe I was 15 or 16. And, I was playing gigs like a professional probably at that time. And I sat on the stool with him at the piano. I looked at him. I said, man, you don't get tired of people talking all over you when you playing and just not listening to nothing you playing? He looked over at me while he kept playing. He said, do you get tired of eating? So, he's like, man, this is paying for you to eat your food. You better shut up and sit here. And so, my dad, he was funny like that.
What do you think it was, though? Like, when you think about it, because, I mean, that really is the thing about the journey of jazz for some people, because it did remain relatively unpopular during large chunks of time. So the people that were playing it must have had, like what you said, a belief in it, but they were on some sort of journey. I mean, what is it?
Well, you have to have education to understand the music. I mean, I grew up with it. I didn't like it. I was always hearing it. It's just they understood the implication of music, the spirituality of it. And as a group activity, man, playing jazz is the most cathartic thing if you got a good swing and rhythm section. Because you're creating these ideas and they just keep going and other people in the group are developing them. But if you're an audience member and you're used to listening to kind of stuff on the radio, you might be hearing 30 seconds of music repeated over and over again. Man, to sit through 10 minutes of that's a lot.
Yeah.
Because I sat through many nights of hearing them play being like, damn, what are they playing? But something happens that you hear it one day.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Do you remember what was it that made, when did you hear it?
I think I was like 11 going into 12. And me and my brother were joking about the fact that the people on our albums had on wild costumes and looked stupid. And the people on our daddy's albums had on suits and stuff. They looked like they had sense. And we're just laughing and playing. So we put on one of the records, Giant Steps. I thought, man, that's like the first time, because my father had a picture of him with Coltrane and James Black on the wall, and they loved Train. Train had come to hear them play, in the 1960s, 1962. So he had a picture of them with Train. And I know how much they respected Train. So Train was dead by this time. So I said, man, I'm going to put that record on. The next day I put Train on, put Giant Steps on. And, I started liking it. I said, wow. Then I started to listen. Okay, Train played with Miles. I listened to Miles' record. Miles started with Dizzy. I checked out Dizzy's record. And then I met Dizzy. And, so then all the people I kind of knew from being around my daddy, whenever people come to New Orleans, they play with him. And then from there, I got into the music.
Yeah.
From there, I got into the music. And I started to be kind of obsessed with it. Then I started wondering if I could learn how to play it.
Yeah.
Because the kind of music we was playing that we called jazz wasn't really jazz. It was like instrumental pop music and funk, which I liked playing. I had a great time. But I still was wondering, I wonder if I could play, with the same kind of thing like what Clifford Brown and them play with. And that's what started me kind of on the path of trying to learn how to play the music.
So it was like you knew you had to study it.
There was no question about that. I mean, you didn't think you were gonna make money studying it, but you knew you weren't gonna play it. Even my daddy, I would go sit in with him sometimes, and I'd learned how to circular breathe. That's where you can go and just never stop playing. Right. And man, I do my circular breathing thing, and I would go into my thing, go into my crouch, and I do on my funk gigs, and all the people just erupt in applause. Yay! I hold a note for 2 minutes, and when I finished playing, my daddy called me over the piano and said, "Come here, man." I come over there, I'd be like, "Yeah, man, you heard that solo?" And he said, "Hey, man, the circus is down the street." He would just douse me, man. But I would have to laugh because I know he was right.
But he was getting on you because you were just showing off?
Hey, play some music, man. We're not up here doing that. You're not playing nothing.
So what would determine to him, what would be playing music? What determines that?
You're creating themes, you have development, you're hearing your way through chord changes, you're interacting with the group, you're doing all of that.
Right.
You can't, man, you're getting in all of that. And you're concentrating on what you're playing. You're trying to touch people with the depth of what you're saying rather than a kind of external kind of thing. Like he called it the shiny suit. Put the shiny suit on, you plug it in, and the lights go on. People say, "Wow, look at those lights." He was more just, he was basic, like communicate with people, man. They will follow you if you keep communicating with them. Huh. But then I would tease him and say, "Well, Dig, you ain't communicating with them because they don't come out to see you play. They see in our funk band, we packed it every gig."
Yeah.
But he wasn't against us. He came and he sat in on our gigs. And I remember we played a dance at a high school, McMain Senior High School. My father came and played. We played a Crusader song called "Keep That Same Old Feeling," and it has a bridge section. And one of our other trumpet player was a guy named John Roche. Lebo was his nickname. And he said, "Man, you can't have your daddy sitting on this tune because of that bridge that section. He ain't going to be able to hear that." I said, "Man, my daddy's a jazz musician. He going to listen to it one time. He's going to start playing it." Man, they played that bridge the first time. My daddy listened to it. That second time, he just played through it. And I remember my boy looked at me. He had never heard like something out of the bebop tradition. Uh-huh. He looked at me and said, "Man, what is that shit he's playing?" You know what I'm saying? But because we had grown up listening to him, we knew, what the magic of playing and being able to play.
Now, but that was sort of like you were kind of on the classical. That was going to be your thing, right?
No,
never.
I always wanted to play jazz. I loved it. I mean, and I still love classical music. No, that was never my thing. I came to New York to play jazz because I wanted to be like my father. Like my essential thing was I wanted to do what they wanted to do. Like my father wanted to come to New York. All the jazz musicians I had met when I was growing up, Clark Terry, Sweets Edison, I loved all of them. They were like uncles to me. And I wanted to make them proud, and I wanted them to feel like I could play. Yeah. That was my main thing. And they were always looking at me like, "Man, you said one day you're going to learn how to play." So I love classical music, and I love playing it. And I was fortunate to get a little bit of a reputation for playing it. And I practice a lot, and still to this day, I love orchestral music. And the one thing I'm grateful for is my father was not prejudiced against music. So he always told me, "Man, listen to this music, or study it, or check this, anything, even playing in a funk band," which at first I didn't want to do. Then I was 11, my daddy said, "Man, play in the band."
So the classical music, like what do you carry? Because I know that I can feel that, just by listening to these longer pieces that you did in this one, the Ever Fonky Lowdown, that, you put a lot in, you're a perfectionist, you write this stuff out that, it's tight. So is that something that you just is part of your personality, or is that something you learned from classical music?
No, well, I developed it. I was playing classical pieces all through high school. So I was hearing longer form pieces. I never forget, I played a concert of Marc